Hi guys, this is Lily, and right now in this video we are going to talk about lab meeting agendas. Right here I just created 4 little bullet points on sort of what is a lab meeting agenda. The lab meeting agenda is a running task list on projects and administrative announcements. It's also a great tool for project communication flow. And it also archives project progressions at DICE. And lab meeting agendas are cycled through every week. So let's go ahead and dive right in on sort of where lab meeting agendas are located and how the lab manager will facilitate the lab meeting agenda for students. Here we are again in the DICE Gmail account, and we're going to go into Drive. And in the work log video, I did mention that we would have a video on lab meeting agenda folders, and this is where you will go. 2 things live in this folder, and 2 things live in this folder only at all times. We have a document here which has the first fall lab meeting date, which is September 25th, 2019. And then we also have an old folder, but we'll look at that in a little bit. So let's open this guy up. So clearly fall hasn't started yet, so our lab meeting agenda is blank. But what's really important here is that we have our date, and we have 2 big sections, our administrative and announcements, and our project section. And I like to keep the birthdays here. This is just a reminder for me to remember everyone's birthdays and stuff like that. So if we just want to role play for a quick second, we can pretend that tomorrow is lab meeting. And so what I will do, since it's the first week of lab, not much is really going to be going on, but I, as a lab manager, will have a lot of administrative stuff and a lot of announcements for students. So I will include something like, welcome back. And generally, I like to get creative with this welcome back. I'll do I'll pick a photo, something pretty and cute and, oh, well, it's being stubborn, but you get the idea. I like to include just like a pretty picture instead of something boring and mundane, just like blank text. And then I might also want to say, tell us about your summer. Any new experiences? I know a lot of our students were off on internships. So these might be 2 things that, I would want to include. I would also want to include my updates, right? So things that happened at DICE over the summer. Sorry, my typing is awful. It is 5:52 p.m. and I'm a little tired. I will definitely want to update everybody on the BGM mental health analysis. I will also want to talk about our SROP student, Rajane. She did research presentation, and just sort of things like that, letting people know of what's to come. Another big announcement, we will also have welcome Ursula plus Courtney. Ursula is going to be our postdoc and Courtney will be our grad student. So we want to create, administrative and stuff we do at lab doesn't have to always be so, task related and stuff like that. But we like to make it warm and inviting, and we do want to hear about what students have been up to, because a lot of times students, their travels and their study abroad programs and their internships are very much related to what we study at DICE. And so really just getting that update is it's fun. So these are just a couple of announcements. Now there isn't going to be any project update, but Dr. Rogers might want to ask the lab manager to include projects that we're thinking about working on. So I know right off the top of my head that there's going to be focus group analysis going on, like that's going to be a project. I know that we're going to want the identity coding on intersectionality, stuff like that. And so generally for the first lab meeting, it'll be something like, who is interested in focus group analysis? And Amani will say, me, and Chrissy will say, me too. And then Day will say, I want to do this. And Christine will say, I want to do this. And Jason will say, hey, me too. So this is what our lab meeting agenda is going to look like for the first week. And based on this, Ani or Dr. Rogers might say, okay, everybody, start by coding participants. And this is very generally speaking. This is not how it's going to happen, but just to give you an idea. And then Ani might say, start by coding participants and have preliminary results by next lab meeting. And again, I apologize for all the typos. And here we go. And this will sort of be our first lab meeting agenda. Then lab meeting ends. And when lab meeting ends, the first thing that the lab manager does right away is recycle it. So you'll come back into the drive. And I like to do this right away because students like to update this document as the week goes by. And we'll talk a little bit more about sort of what sharing this document looks like. So right away, you will make a copy. And remember how I said only 2 things must live here? This is why. We're going to take this old lab meeting agenda, we're going to put it in old, and it's going to fulfill this guy right here, an archive of project progression. And we will rename this new agenda to the following lab meeting, which is October 2nd. Oh, let's stick with the dashes on this one. There we go. So then from here, based on the items that we talked about in lab meeting on September 25th, students are going to use their time from September 25th until October 2nd to work on their projects. The day before every lab meeting, the lab manager must share the new lab meeting agenda folder with students. And so the way to do that, so let's just pretend that right now it's October 1st. The lab manager will come in here, she'll open, or he will open this up, change the date, and we want this to be what it was last week, right? And then you'll click share. Shareable link. And want to make sure that this can view is can edit, because if it's on can view, students won't be able to edit. So you want to say can edit. You will copy this link and you'll open up a new email and you'll send an email every Tuesday, basically. If lab meetings are Wednesday in the fall, every Tuesday you'll send an email to everybody on the team and say, hey guys, here is the link for tomorrow's lab meeting agenda. So you'll copy this link, you'll paste it in the body of your email. And what this shareable link will do is it will allow everybody, including Amani and Chrissy and Day and Jason and Christine, everybody will be able to click this link, and everybody all at the same time, if they choose, can go ahead and edit this document. So if I pretend like I am Amani, I'm gonna come in, and as Amani, I'm going to enter my updates. And students generally do this, which I absolutely love because it keeps things nice and organized. Amani will say, coded all participants. And then Chrissy will also enter her update. Could not code, sick. I keep making Chrissy sick in all these videos. Chrissy, I'm sorry. But you know, it's an update. This is Chrissy's update. This is Amani's update. And then Day will come in and she'll say, I did this and this, and same for Christine, same for Jason, and maybe Jason says, you know, I have results. And another thing that students do is, and this is just because of, you know, having good quality RAs at DICE, is sort of, you know, next step, right? And Christine might say, I will write the abstract. Boom. Put that in red. And of course, these welcome back things they won't be there because we already welcomed everybody. We won't talk about summer again, and the lab manager generally updates administrative announcements. But as lab manager, maybe I might say something like, let's say to new RAs, make sure you complete your city trainings and your readings. Let's discuss readings for new RAs. You know, stuff like that. Just more like administrative things. And so what ends up happening is now we have our new weekly document. And so once lab meeting starts, the lab manager will use the lab laptop, open up this document in the lab laptop, and plug the laptop into the television screen, turn on the TV screen, and this agenda will be ginormous, blown up for everybody to see, and we can cycle through project stuff together. So it really just helps things stay organized. We can just take a quick look at an old lab meeting agenda. Why don't we do, let's do spring of 2019. So these were project focused. So we don't really have a lot for spring and summer. In the spring and summer of 2019, students were all doing their own independent research, and students kind of communicated like, Lil, we don't need a lab meeting agenda, we're going to be able to come in. But some students, actually, I take that back. What ended up happening was that students were working on their projects in the winter, and in the spring, students were writing up all their results. So when students generally write up their results and their abstracts, they bring printed copies and we workshop them together. So spring and summer was actually workshop focused. But if we look at winter of 2019, let's look at 221. And I started doing this, started using calendars for the lab. You don't have to do this, but because students were working on their own independent projects, they submitted their work to the Office of Undergraduate Studies and presented all of their independent research at an exposition here at Northwestern. And so there were a lot of deadlines, a lot of things to think about, and so I really wanted to, so here you can see the abstract, their first draft, their second draft. I created just this calendar for everyone to have a visual aid on when things were due, so this is up to you. But here you can see, so project outline, Lillian Shari and Josiah and Amani didn't have updates for that week, but it was mostly probably because they brought in their results in person rather than putting them up on the screen. So also, this tool it's not mandatory, but it's a good tool if students want to use it. So here you can see Day and Chrissy. Donald Trump references, this was all of Day's work. And the counter kids, this was all of Chrissy's work, right? So she really gives me like, this is my research question, these are my goals for this project, measures, this is what I want to look at, supporting literature, and then boom, next steps. Just gold star, right? Such a beautifully, and for day 2, like just a very beautiful way of writing what they want to do. Yeah. And that is it for for lab meeting agenda folders. Thank you for watching.